Breakfast, BBC Radio London. Now, to ban or not to ban, that's the hot question schools are facing over mobile phones. Is it better to control students' use of devices or ban them from classrooms altogether? 4 secondary schools in Croydon and Surrey are trying out a scheme where mobile phones will be allowed as long as a Blackout app is downloaded. That would mean students could still call and text, but other apps, including social media, would be unavailable whilst at school. Julian Drinkle from the GLF Trust runs the schools and explains why he thinks this is the best approach.
I think all of us are very aware that technology's caused a lot of damage within our schools. So I have great sympathy for those people who are banning it. On the other hand, technology is the route to the future, and I'm incredibly keen that we try and get the positive benefits of technology as well.
Julian also spoke to us, so he spoke to us there. He'll be joining us in the next hour or so. Freya is a pupil at the Meridian High School in Croydon.
It blocks all social media and games. The only ones it doesn't block is medical apps if needed, messages and phone. I think it's made a good difference so far because I noticed a lot less distractions on cell phones where people can focus on their work. And even though we've only had it a few days, I can see that it is helping.
But David Smith, who's the headmaster of Fulham Boys School, says smartphones should be banned altogether and that they have no place in the classroom.
We've come to conclusions that we think that smartphones are damaging, so up to the age of 16. And we've made that blanket ban that students aren't allowed to bring phones to school at all. And if they do bring them to school, they're confiscated for 6 school weeks. Because we want to educate young people that actually it's not just what you do inside the building, it's what happens outside the building that is causing a damage to you going forward.
Joining me now is Nova Eden from Smartphone Free Childhood. They are behind the plan for Barnet to be the first borough in the country to ban mobile phones from schools. Nova, good morning. What do you think about the different ways schools are approaching mobile phone use?
I think it's a very challenging conversation for the secondary schools. I think that, each school has to sort of find their own way of dealing with this current cohort of children. There are things that head teachers can implement, whether it's Yonder pouches or lockers or this Blackout app. But what we really need to look at here is the root of the problem. We now know that smartphones and social media are the main contributing factors to the mental health crisis that we're seeing in young minds. And we really need to, really tackle that. This is not just about what's happening between sort of the 4 walls of schools. Of course, we want to remove smartphones from schools. We know it's a huge distraction to education. But what we really want is sort of meaningful, accelerated change for this next generation. And we really are advocating for delaying smartphones and delaying social media until sort of age 14 for smartphones, age 16 for social media. We want children to have that sort of 7 to 8 hours a day where they're going to school and they're free from these devices. We know they're highly addictive. We know it's causing a huge amount of problems in young children. So I think that these sort of solutions are very short term. I think it's like fixing a dam with a plaster.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, how do you implement something like this?
Well, I think there's lots of different things that head teachers are doing, and they're all sort of in the secondary schools finding their own feet and sort of finding their own plans and policies. What's happened in Barnet is a real sort of brilliant example of sort of, parents and head teachers coming together to say, look, we know that there's a huge problem with children and smartphones and social media. We know we want to make meaningful change. And what's really interesting, which happened in Barnet, is that from September 2025, the new cohort of children in year 7 who will be going into the secondary schools in Barnet, they won't be allowed to bring in smartphones whatsoever. And really, we think that this is the best policy because this is really making that change. We wouldn't allow children to bring in cigarettes or alcohol to school. Now that we know smartphones are, detrimental to children's mental health and well-being, this is really about sort of setting that legitimate boundary with what is acceptable on school premises.
But this new generation, this generation of younger people, they've grown up with phones. It's not just phones, it's technology in general. How do you stop them using phones when everything we do now is online, It's on phones, it's on tablets. You see classroom pictures, kids are on tablets in classrooms. We've become so dependent on these devices, yet we're asking them to go without them for 8 hours a day. It's like asking an addict to go cold turkey.
Well, I think that's why for the current cohort of children in secondary schools, we're sort of looking at alternative policies for the next couple of years. But really, what we want here, we know that technology is part of the future. We're not anti-tech, but what we're really saying is just not yet, not at this young age. We're not saying never. We're just saying not yet to the phones and smartphones and social media. If we can protect children for a longer period of time, for a few extra years, that's really what we want to get to. We wouldn't give children sort of, anything else that was dangerous or harming to them at a young age for them to practice with it. So really, if we can sort of just delay, make sure that children are really having that childhood that they deserve, because we know that children are not outside as much as they used to be. They're not sort of pursuing all the healthy activities that they need for healthy development. Instead, they're spending hours and hours on their devices alone, and it's causing a lot of loneliness and social isolation and depression, and there's alarming and rising levels of anxiety. So really, while these children are young, let's get them outside. Let them have their childhood.
I was going to say, I mean, I look at it now and kids struggle to have conversations with each other. The funny thing is that someone turned around to me the other day and said that whilst phones were developed to make calls, because everyone's texting each other, people struggle to have social conversations, or even basic conversations day to day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, children are really struggling with social skills, and there's a huge problem with this generation. I mean, Gen Z are kind of growing up in this uncontrolled experiment. We know it's causing a mental health epidemic. They're not socializing the way they used to. There's a huge problem with gaming at the moment as well. A lot of young boys sort of think that it's socializing to be gaming on the headphones. But what we really want is that sort of face-to-face interaction, those bear hugs, those belly laughs with friends. That's what we need for healthy development.
Absolutely, absolutely, indeed. What can parents do to help this?
So our campaign is sort of bringing parent communities together with schools. And the thing about this is schools are in such a powerful position to help change the norm. And that's why it's so key for head teachers to really sort of speak up on this. And I think that's why everybody was so passionate about this in Barnet and coming together. We had 126 head teachers all coming together to say, we want to help, make change. And what we've seen from our campaign is that those head teachers that are being supportive are having parent communities that are having great success as well. Because if the school's saying, you're not allowed to bring a smartphone to school, what that means is the parents can then sort of say to their children, if you're traveling independently, we want you to be safe, then you have to have a brick phone. And a brick phone just means that you haven't got the internet in your pocket. So you can still make calls, you can still send messages. And I think that brick sales actually are increasing now, which is fantastic. So parents are becoming more aware, coming together in groups, in clusters of classes and agreeing to delay smartphones, agreeing to delay social media together within, schools with the support of the head teachers. That's where we're really seeing sort of meaningful change.
God, Nova, I remember my era where it was getting in trouble by Bluetoothing songs to each other back in that day in the mid-2000s, or infraredding songs to each other. Nothing else. It was all text, and then it all sort of blew up with social media, didn't it? Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Nova Eden from Smartphone Free Childhood with us on Breakfast on BBC Radio London. If you're a parent, by the way, and you are someone who is concerned about your child's use of mobile phones at school, if you're a parent maybe wondering whether they should get their child a smartphone for school, and I know parents who have done that this year have sort of buckled and said, right, well, yeah, they need a phone. Would you buy them a brick? Would you buy them an old, what was it, a 3310? That's what everyone had, a 3310 Nokia. That was the one. Would you buy them what they call a brick phone? Snake, polyphonic ringtones, basic text. Would you buy them one of those just so that they don't effectively get melted by social media and having a smartphone in their pocket all day, every day?